You're watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Christa Orecchio. This is news that makes you healthier. Randy is out today, but we have an awesome show planned for you guys with my guest, Marc Sklar, doctor of Chinese medicine, functional acupuncturist, and really just an amazing practitioner. He and I used to team up on cases of women trying to get pregnant with great success. So I'm so happy to have him with us today. Marc, welcome to the Randy and Christa show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited that you're here. There's no better person than you, the fertility expert, to be talking about fertility.
Yeah, it's my love, so.
Yeah, and it's a prominent topic, and it's becoming more and more prominent as our food supply continues to change, right? As women continue to age and want to have children later. So let's jump right in.
Sure.
We're going to go over the 3 causes of infertility. We're not going to forget the guys. And what's the first primary issue that you see?
Yeah, so there are 3 main issues that we tend to see in the practice, and the first one by far is PCOS. Not only is it the most common female endocrine disorder, but it's the most common infertility issue that we see, or the most common cause for infertility that we see.
Okay, so polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yes.
Let's define that, exactly what is PCOS.
Sure, so I like to term PCOS as actually polyfollicular ovarian syndrome, because what ends up happening is as the eggs, and they're not really eggs, they're follicles, start to mature in a woman's ovaries, in PCOS women, they actually stay immature. And instead of having maybe somewhere between, depending on the age of the woman, anywhere from 2 eggs on each ovary to 10 or 15, a woman with PCOS might have somewhere between 20 and 40.
Okay.
And so these are all immature, small follicles with hopefully eggs inside of them. And because of that, there's a hormonal dysregulation, one that's causing the disturbance, and also that's now causing the inability for a menstrual cycle to come. And so these immature follicles maintain themselves, and what ends up happening is that they either don't have a menstrual cycle at all, maybe once a year, 3, 4, 5 times a year, or it's very irregular and infrequent because of this imbalanced hormone, or hormones I should say, and these multiple follicles on the ovaries.
And they never know if they're ovulating or
Never know.
or when they're ovulating. It's got to be quite
Yeah, it's
difficult.
completely irregular. They won't know, well, many, I would say the more typical type of PCOS, they won't know when they're ovulating, they won't know when they're going to menstruate. In terms of symptomology, they might be overweight, they might have difficulty losing weight, have unwanted body hair or facial hair, certainly irregular cycles. And then if we did some lab testing, we might also see some other symptomology,
Maybe
like
high testosterone.
high testosterone or other androgens, and then potentially irregular blood sugar levels. Those are some key factors with the typical PCOS patient. But about 50% of my patients with PCOS are atypical.
Interesting.
They might look just like you, except for they might come in saying that they have an irregular cycle.
Right.
And their doctor might not give any credence to it, or they might just think it's something going on with their hypothalamus, and really dismiss it. Oftentimes they're just put on birth control pills to regulate and treat the issue.
Band-aid the issue.
Band-aid the issue. Yeah.
And also insomnia too. I found when I've worked with PCOS, is that typical or would that be atypical?
It's atypical.
Okay.
Yeah. I do see a lot of hair issues, brittle hair, lots of hair falling out. And then one thing that I absolutely see very often in the practice is a strong correlation between PCOS and thyroid disorders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Autoimmune thyroid disorders or hypothyroid?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, hypothyroid, and then certainly Hashimoto's. Actually, a patient comes to mind who I was fairly certain she had PCOS. We sent her for testing, and sure enough, all her thyroid labs came back normal, except her antibodies.
Nothing's normal.
So nothing's necessarily normal. Although for her, she just emailed me a week ago and told me she's pregnant after 3 months. So
Yes. That's why we do what we do.
That's why we do it.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so somebody goes and they find out that they have PCOS, and then like, what's underneath that? What do you typically find as the root cause? Like, I would test them for intestinal pathogens and see, okay, could this be a root cause of both the Hashimoto's and the PCOS?
Certainly. So almost all my patients with PCOS have some component or some factor of digestive issues. They could have pathogens, candida, overgrowth of candida or yeast is a big one that we treat often with those patients. So that's absolutely a piece to it, and that could be the key that actually is throwing off their blood sugar.
Right.
So it's really, you have to 100% always treat the digestive system in some way. For some women it might be the key, and for some it just might be one of the issues.
What would be the next step that you would go towards healing PCOS after you check the digestion?
Yeah, so we need to do a hormone panel, really see what hormones are off and to what degree. And so we have to test androgens. So not all women with PCOS will have elevated androgens, testosterone and DHEA and so forth. So we do want to test that, and depending on the severity of that imbalance, that is also one of the top priorities. So we always have to regulate hormones, we have to regulate the digestive system, and certainly blood sugar with that.
Get the diet right.
Get the diet right.
In
yeah,
there.
absolutely. And once we can do that and set some of the foundational things done, we can really make profound change. You do have to, at least I find initially, you do have to put them on some supplements to really get them over that initial hump and get them back on their cycle.
What would be an example of your top 3 supplements, let's say, for somebody with classic PCOS?
So a combination of D-chiroinositol and myoinositol to help with blood sugar regulation. The myoinositol also helps to feed the ovaries and the follicles in the ovaries, so that's nice.
What's the difference between those 2 types of inositol? Which is a B vitamin, by the way, you guys?
We need to have those in proper ratio. We've done, the research actually really is not just about, the main one we hear about is myoinositol, but we need to have those 2 in proper balance. And the research really shows that a ratio, I think if it's of 40 to 1, of myo to D-chiro really is what sets the hormonal regulation in balance and regulates blood sugar specifically for PCOS patients.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. What's number 2?
And then number 2 will be, if they have elevated testosterone, then I'm going to put them on some testosterone reducing herbs. And the fun thing about that, or I find it fun, is that typically the herbs that I use are herbs to help prostate health because they decrease testosterone. So I'm always having a conversation with patients when I'm talking to them about it, because they usually are familiar with those herbs being for prostate health, or the products might actually say, prostate something on it. So that's always a fun conversation.
For sure.
But that makes a profound difference. Yeah. And then maca is one of my favorite ones as well. And not any maca, but specific type of maca from Natural Health International.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Marc's referring to the different phenotypes or the different colors of maca, and that indicates what they can do in the body. And there's a yellow type of maca, which is great for fertility, which we like to use from, it's called Feminescence, if you want to look for it in the health food store. And then for male fertility, we'll talk about, it's the black maca, the Revolution Pro.
Yeah, and the key that we should actually mention about that is that typically when you're just getting most other maca brands in the store, is that you're getting usually either the male type or a blend, and the male type will increase testosterone levels, and we don't want any of our patients with PCOS to have any extra androgens, so we do have to be careful about that.
Thanks for bringing up that point. Just because someone says take this supplement, quality is everything, and
Absolutely.
You can really do a lot of damage with herbs, and if you don't know exactly how to use them, so that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, your best PCOS story outside of this woman who awesomely got pregnant within 3 months.
Well, I always undoubtedly come back to actually my first fertility patient who happened to be a woman with PCOS.
Okay.
And she came in to see me. I actually wasn't even licensed yet. I was still in the school clinic many, many moons ago. And she knew she had PCOS and an irregular cycle, so our goal was just to work on that. And with I was seeing her for about 6 months, but at the 4.5 to 5 month mark, we were expecting her cycle because we got her first cycle and we were expecting to come again, and it didn't come, and we thought, we both looked at each other and we thought that actually something was wrong. We did something wrong, but we didn't. But we only found out 2 weeks later.
Oh, gosh.
And so 2 weeks later she came in and she said, I took a pregnancy test and I'm pregnant.
Yay!
That's why I hadn't had my period. And so we were ecstatic.
You did so much right, you thought you did something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually helped her have 2 more children in addition to that one. And she's really what got me going in this direction.
It's the greatest blessing. It just gives me chills. It's like such a privilege to do this work. And a story's coming to my mind that I want to share with you guys is that I was working with someone who came to me, and this was just maybe just a little less than a year ago. And she had come to me and she said, listen, I've been trying to get pregnant with my second child and I've had 4 miscarriages and I can't take it anymore to have another one. This is my last chance. And I said, you need to get tested for MTHFR genetic mutation as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, and so this is a genetic mutation where if you have it, you're not able to process folic acid. You need folate, which is the food-based form of this B vitamin that prevents miscarriages. It's so important for implantation and helps the neural tube and the spinal column to form. And so she got tested. She found out she was pregnant. She gets tested, she has MTHFR, she starts, taking everything she needs to take, but, she found out when she's already like 6 weeks pregnant and she was starting to lose the baby. To the point where her doctor said they found a large yolk sac, which anybody knows anything about miscarriages, you pretty much almost should let it go at that point. And I said to this woman, stop everything you're doing right now. I called Mark, I called you, you were leaving the office. I feel like you were getting ready to go to vacation. And I said, yeah, it was so kind of you. I said, can you please go back to the office? Can you please help her? This is the difference between this child making it or not. And you put together Chinese herbs for her. And long story short, she had her baby 4 months ago and she's doing amazing, and it's just to think that this child wouldn't exist. And she wrote me this beautiful card.
Oh, that's great. I got the chills.
And showed pictures. I'm going to send you a photo. So that's why this is such an important topic. It's literally such a game changer.
Absolutely, it is.
So I'll throw MTHFR. My hat in the ring is another root cause of infertility.
Yeah.
So to get tested, and then. Number 2 is poor ovarian reserve and advanced maternal age. And this is very real, but women are having babies later in their late 30s and early 40s, which is how we ended up getting connected. So talk about this. What do you do to help these women?
Yeah, so there's lots of underlying reasons for women and couples having potential fertility issues, but this population is really a big one, and it's growing because as a culture, we're all just delaying starting families, having families later in life. And then that poor ovarian reserve is not really so much about advanced maternal age as it is, as you probably agree with me, in terms of environmental factors and toxins that we're exposed to and the quality of the food and the lifestyle and stress and so forth. So there's all these variables around poor ovarian reserve that influence it. And it's really hard to narrow it down why that's happening right now, but the prevalence is just skyrocketing. And with everybody, it's a little bit different. For some, it's that stress issue. They're having, their adrenal glands are overworked, their hypothalamus and pituitary are just not functioning properly. And for others, they are exposed to a lot of toxins. That population of individuals, not to come back to digestion all the time, but they do have a huge, I know.
It, so, yeah.
But they have a big component and issue with that is digestive health.
Right.
And it's funny when I start talking to patients about it in my first couple of visits with them, and I start to talk about digestion. They say, but I came here for fertility. I'm like, I understand, but we can't really treat your fertility unless we treat the underlying issue that's at hand, and this is the underlying issue.
Which
so
will
oftentimes,
free your fertility.
Absolutely. So oftentimes that's what it is. The advanced maternal age piece is really working on women and trying to just reverse the aging process. I like to joke about it as being reproductive anti-aging.
Yes.
We're trying to affect cellular health and cellular degeneration, actually reverse cellular degeneration with that population of women. And I think couples out there will hear a lot of things that are mixed and negative in regards to this advanced maternal age, saying there's nothing that can be done, there's very little you can do, it's all about the fact that you're so, you're older and you're over 40 or whatnot. And I will tell, patients and I'll tell all of you out there that don't get caught up with your age. There's absolutely nothing you can do to change your age, but you can do a ton to change and influence your cellular health. And that's really where the focus should be.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a chapter in our fertility book called Taking the Batteries Out of the Biological Clock.
I love it.
Yeah, and so that is all about cellular regeneration. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That could be a topic in and of itself. But like if you were then to say, okay, top 3 things to start, obviously you're going to heal your digestion, and we have to take care of the microbiome because that's crucial. And then in terms of rebooting cellular energy, if you will, what's your top way to do that?
So the first thing has to be that we need to put a priority on sleep.
Great.
Your body heals during sleep. It needs that regeneration. We as a culture and society do not get nearly enough sleep as we need. So always number one, I'm asking patients to go to sleep earlier. Try to sleep in a little bit longer, and then stress is that other piece, because that really speeds up the aging process and the degeneration quite a bit. And sometimes it's easier said than done, right? Managing stress and so forth. But we have to find the things that are important for us and that we know that we can control when it comes to stress. So if you don't like doing, yoga and meditation, that's not going to help the situation.
Right.
Go find the things
whatever it is for you, whether that's walking out in nature, going to movies, or Yeah. And it's so much, people always say, oh, stress and sleep, but that is way harder than eating different and taking the right supplements, because you actually have to change your relationship to stress. We almost get addicted to it.
Yeah.
And change your lifestyle to create space for a baby and not feel guilty about sleeping in, and that slow your life down a little bit. And I think that was probably the most of the challenge that I ran into of women changing that. And myself included. It's
really
hard to
difficult,
slow down.
Right? Yeah. It's addicting to feel the way they were feeling.
Right.
That buzz.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's excellent advice. And then number 3, we can't forget the guys. Male infertility. Let's talk about some of the root causes. And I'm really interested, and I emailed you about a study that I read recently talking about chlamydia testing, not drilling deep enough, so males go asymptomatic, undiagnosed for a number of years. It turns into prostatitis, inflammation of the prostate gland, and yields them infertile, and they never know the root of it. So I'd like you to speak to that and the other causes of male infertility.
Yeah. Some of the just basic causes of male infertility, well, I guess we should maybe clarify for everyone out there the 3 main issues that we're looking for in men. So we're looking at sperm count, sperm motility, the way they swim, the way the sperm swim in a forward direction, and then sperm morphology, the shape of the sperm. So does it have one head, one body, one tail? And I said also
double-headed monsters.
Right, exactly. And I said I should also clarify that in many instances, for most men, the majority of sperm we produce are abnormal, and that's considered normal. So I have a lot of patients who come in, they get all concerned with these numbers, and I look at them, I was like, would they actually look great?
I'm so relieved when I hear you say that.
Yeah, so those are the 3 factors that we're looking at.
Okay.
The number 1 cause of male infertility is actually something called a varicocele, a varicose vein in the testicles, which causes a lot of heat and inflammation, and that can usually throw off morphology and all the other factors as well. So there's a lot that can be done for that naturally. What Western medicine likes to do is put you under the knife. Unfortunately, that's only 50% effective.
Could you take a supplement that's a vasodilator, or just use some ice?
Well, that's a great idea. So I do recommend icing the area, and then not avoiding all the things that would bring more heat to the area.
Okay.
And then, yes, some supplements would do the same thing. I do use Chinese herbs for that, which work really, really well.
Okay.
So you're not necessarily going to correct the varicocele. It's not going to go away, but you're actually clearing the blood flow through the area, which
Exactly.
won't cause the abnormalities then.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Great. What's number 2?
So that's number 1. Number 2 is some of the basic things that we've already covered in the topics with everybody, with women, is really just overall lifestyle, right? A healthy lifestyle, diet, stress, lack of sleep, over or under exercise, so some of those foundational things. And then you mentioned number 3 already, STDs.
STDs. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they can be asymptomatic and not know. And so do you test them?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, first we start with some of the basic stuff, and if those aren't coming back all normal, but we still see the numbers being low, then that's where we go next.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else in terms of antioxidants? And I love putting guys on some powerful antioxidants and like a supercharged multivitamin with folate. And
Yeah. So one of the reasons why the antioxidants work so well is because they work at that cellular level, and they work on the DNA of the cell, and the main thing that they tend to affect is morphology. So they're going to really boost and improve healthy morphology. But number 1 off of anything that we can improve is count. So if we can improve count, then we make a profound difference in all the other variables, because the other variables are a percentage off of the total count. So if you have 20 million sperm, which is technically what's considered normal now versus what used to be 60 million, and you have 4% normal morphology of 20 million versus 4% morphology of 100 million,
big changes.
big change. So even if the morphology doesn't change, but the count does, you've still increased the total number of healthy sperm to use.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many ways to overcome what people are told. Here's your diagnosis. You have to
Right.
live with it. And that's why we do this show, because you don't. This is news that makes you healthier. I hope you guys are feeling healthier. There are plenty of ways to work with Marc, and we have put them on our website, which is thewholejourney.com/reproductive wellness. And now, Marc, I love that you give people options. So tell me, they can work with you one-on-one. You have a DIY fertility school. You have a PCOS program coming up. Like,
Yeah.
how do we decide?
Well, it all depends on where you're located. So in San Diego, I have 2 clinics. And so if they're in San Diego or somewhere nearby, they're welcome to come and visit locally. I always love for that to be the case. And then if you are anywhere else in the world and want to work with me, it really just depends on what you're looking for. If you really want a lot of hand-holding, or your case is really complex and you need a special tailored plan for you, then that's where the one-on-one work with me or one of my associates really comes in.
Great.
And then if you feel like you've got a decent handle on what's going on and you just need some fine-tuning, maybe a little bit of guidance here and there, that's where the do-it-yourself programs like My Fertility School, the PCOS program, will come in handy.
Perfect. Thank you for creating those programs and giving people a place to turn, from the traditional model.
Yeah, it's been great for me because I've seen the results from everyone out there, and that makes it so much more worthwhile for me.
It fuels us to keep going.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing it. I've loved having you here. We're going to talk in the next segment about lab tests, functional lab tests, some very cool new tests that have come up, you guys. So don't go away. Part 2 is coming up soon. Thanks for being here, Marc.
Thank you.